Rev Cornelia Grant's retirement is acknowledged at Conference 2021 after an interesting and fruitful time of ministry, which brought her husband Stuart and children from Germany to the land of the long white cloud. Cornelia's theological training in her homeland served her well many years later when she was ordained at Durham Street in 2005. In ministry, she served in a variety of contexts with a keen sense of pastoral awareness, ecumenical emphasis, and a well-prepared meal in between. She now joins Stuart in retirement and in anticipation of what is next.
Reflecting on your time in ministry, both here in Aotearoa and in Germany, what are some of the things and differences and some similarities that stood out to you?
I just want to say that active ministry, I didn't have in Germany. I studied from 1975 to 82 at the University of Tübingen in theology. But then I was scooped up and married in Germany, but then came straight away to New Zealand. So there was no active ministry as such in Germany. Well, that's all I want to say so far.
Your ordination or your formal introduction to ministry began when you came into Aotearoa, New Zealand. And you were also, for the latter half at least of your ministry, doing ministry alongside Stuart. I know it didn't start in that capacity, but what were some of the joys and the challenges, the dynamics that you faced in both ministry and family life, doing ministry alongside Stuart?
Well, for the first 12 years of our marriage, I was only on the sideline of ministry, if you want to say so. I was the telephone receiver of messages and dealing with people on the phone if Stuart was at home. Otherwise, I was mother and wife, and I was very happy to do so because I thought, even having studied theology, a minister as such, you can be at any time and in any way. You don't have to be only the ordained minister in front there. And therefore, for a pastoral point of view, I never felt deprived of ministry. And in the parish, in whatever parish we were, I just picked up whatever needed to be done. I never went into the leadership of Women's Fellowship because I thought Women's Fellowship exists without me. Whether I'm there or not, I'm coming. But these ladies, they're there. So it is better to let them do their own thing. And I do some other things. For instance, in Nelson, I had 4 Bible study groups. That was much more my thing than a women's fellowship. And you asked about ministry besides Stuart. That only came about, well, it was already a little bit in Ashurst, Pohongina and Bunnythorpe, but more probably in Dunedin, where we had the whole of Dunedin for ourselves. So we divided it up between Stuart has 2 churches, I had 2 churches. So we never were actually overlapping, if you want to say so, only if we chose to have pulpit exchange or do some things together. But otherwise, each one had their own ministry.
Your children traveled with you to the different places you were stationed in?
Yeah, and from 1990 to 1995, when our youngest child was just 3 months old, we actually moved for 5.5 to 6 years to Germany, where Stuart was a minister in the Lutheran Church in Germany, in my home country, because I thought it was important for him not only to be a visitor in Germany, but also to experience my culture in an everyday life. And the German church paid for him to have German tuition, so that he learned German enough that he could do ministry in Germany. And that was, I think, very nice for the whole family of us, because that meant that the children had kindergarten and the first years of school in Germany, and therefore learned the language in a full way.
Yes, I think it's well discussed within the church, especially in relating to my work. There's a lot of ministry is not just about one person. There's a family that are taken on a journey as well, and the care and the consideration that we take for our children and our families is so important. Yeah, that we uphold that in what we do. Yeah, so that's great, and your children would be all the richer for that experience as well, I'm sure.
Oh, they certainly feel like that. They still feel that Germany is very much their home country.
Well, Cornelia, with all of your years of experience, beginning in Germany and your theological training, and then coming to Aotearoa, which from Europe to New Zealand, all of your experience, and you've been noted in your record of retirement for your dedicated pastoral ministry. I hear you also have some great culinary skills as well that have been written about in our conference agenda, as well as a strong interest in ecumenism within the life of the church. With all of these things all drawn together, what do you believe should be the priorities of the church moving forward?
Well, you can see that in the history of the church, that the priorities of, if not each generation, then each century, is actually changing. There's never the same priority for 200 or 300 years. Each time had its own priorities and had to deal with its own situations. What we can learn and always should practice, I think, is that we love each other and that we care about each other. Because that's what the command actually of Jesus is, that we should love each other and leave the judging, not be judgmental with each other. Because as far as I can read in the Bible, the judging should be left to God and not we of each other. And I think that's where the church all churches and even parishes fall down in some ways, that we are very quick to judge each other, but not very quick of loving and being kind to each other. And I know that is much harder, because if you think about with children, to love them when they have been naughty or to love them when they have been that, it takes a bit of work. But you do love them. And so people should, as I say, should love each other more and should show more understanding of each other. And that is all over the world and all over of whatever nation. It's not just New Zealand, it's just all over the world. Because in my understanding, the judging should be left to God and not we of each other. In our time of so much untruth, I think the church has a special calling to help not only young people, but also any age group to learn the art of discerning again, discerning what is right and what is not right. Because there's so much rubbish, if you want to say so, coming our way, that it's very difficult to find out what is the truth and what is not true. The other thing I feel very strongly about is to be open-minded, not only towards our own people, but also especially towards strangers. As a young person, as a teenager, I belonged to a group that was called philoxenia, which is translated the love of strangers. And that premise, if you want to say so, has lived with me all my life. I tried to practice it as much as I could, to be open-minded towards strangers and welcoming. And I think that's important as a nation, but also as a church with each other. And one other thing that I think is very important is that all people who offer their lives and their services for ministry, it should be compulsory that they learn about ecumenism, because only then you realize how big the church is, how worldwide the church is, and don't get bogged down with thinking, oh, we are dying, we are just a little church. Yes, We are a little church, and we are a puzzle of a puzzle piece of the big worldwide church. And only when you learn that, then you realize how vibrant church can be. And I'm sure God is not letting us down.